Okay, so in this one we're going to talk about the background. We're going to talk about fluff, glorious fluff.
Yes.
The beauty of this is this video is not going to be particularly long. It's not that there's not a lot of fluff. There's a lot of fluff. There's a good depth of fluff, but more importantly than that, it's nice, straightforward fluff.
Yes.
That's easy for you to pick up and run with.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the whole story kicks off with this fella here. This is my good mate, Barney Balls. Well, actually, no, it's Barney Bus.
Barnabas.
Barnabas, not Barney Balls.
Barnabas Sturgeon. Yeah.
Barnabas drains sturgeon.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. So, Barnabas is our old mucker. He's the one telling the story.
Yeah,
go ahead.
He's the one who travelled to Antarctica, and he set up the Covenant of Antarctica, which is one of the countries you can play in the game.
Yeah.
But he basically found this well which had relics in it and stuff like that, which basically every country has used to make all their fantastic machines and stuff like that. Now,
So it's like a big cave.
yeah, pretty much just this underground stuff, crazy stuff to do with Tesla and things like that. And he wanted everybody to share this technology scientifically, so everything would be a utopia. But unfortunately, all the cities and all the countries in the world don't think like that. They want it all for themselves and to exact their power over everybody. So it turned into a dystopia.
So he went down this big hole, found all this crazy stuff, came out thinking the world's going to be like Star Trek.
Yeah, we'll share this.
But it ended up like EastEnders.
Pretty much. Yeah. Oh, good
So,
way to go.
The word Dystopian Wars, we have moments in here. Moments that you will recognize because it takes place in every gaming club and gaming place around the world. Where I decided, hang on a second, dystopian, does that have a meaning? And then, of course, Andy, gamer Andy, decides, of course it has a meaning. Do you not know that? It's the opposite of utopia.
Yes.
And I thought, well, thank you very much, Andy. I didn't know that, but now I do. So
Learn something new every day.
and that's the whole reason I love this so much. You just keep learning. So dystopia is the opposite of utopia.
Yeah.
Our friend Barney Balls thought he was going to come out and create this utopian society.
Yeah.
But as is always the case, national pride and nationalism took over, and these territories are more interested in their own gain. Some of them just their own protection. Then that protectionism sets in, and it very quickly unravels into a dystopia.
Exactly. I mean, it was escalated by one of his apprentices taking the tech to the Russians and selling it to them, you see, as well, which started a whole war in Europe, which we'll get into as well.
So he had this Russian apprentice who, again, fell victim of his own sense of national pride and identity.
Yep. And took it over to them.
Instead of doing the decent thing of share alike, and he stole it all.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, does that mean that there's a general imbalance between the various territories? We have 4 territories at the moment, or is it 5 at the moment?
Well, there's 5. We've got in the book. There's the Covenant of Antarctica.
Yep.
Which are covered in the booklet that comes with the game.
Now, the Covenant of Antarctica are mentioned in this. That's Barney Balls' own.
That's his own faction.
That's his own faction. They're covered in this, but the rules for them aren't in this rule book. You get that in the starter set for them. You get the rules for those guys and a bit of an expanded explanation of them. So the Covenant of Antarctica, Barnabas' own unit, own faction, and they're trying to readdress the balance. So they're trying to be the peacekeepers.
Basically, they're like the police of the world of dystopia in a way. They don't particularly hate anybody, but they don't particularly like anybody. I mean, they have a bit of beef with the Russians because obviously his apprentice went over to their side. But most of the time, they're usually just trying to keep the peace and try and keep everything regulated and stuff like that.
Do they kind of feel like they're just better than everybody else?
They probably do.
Get a sense of scientific
morally, they probably do.
Technology-wise and science-wise, they are still ahead of the game compared to everybody else.
Oh yeah, they've got a lot more sort of high-tech stuff. They've developed a lot more different sort of weapon upgrades and things like that. I mean, when you get the actual stat cards for the ships, they have bonus weapons that you can put on them, like energy weapons. A lot more access to things like teleportation devices and things like that. So, which other races don't have. So.
But they don't maybe have the population centers that a lot of these
because they've kept themselves very isolated up in the top of Antarctica, so they're trying to keep themselves sealed away, basically. So,
So the Covenant of Antarctica, there's they have a particular kind of way that they've set up their army as well that I had read about, where they have it into little almost autonomous kinds of sections and things that are almost like self-controlling, which I found was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, all led by different generals and things like that. So it's good to, and it means that you, as a player, can sort of go, maybe I'll take the direction of this general, and I'll see if I can make him up as a character and things like that.
Yeah, there's nice customization options and stuff there as well. You'll see the armies that we have on here. You know, I was able to paint both these armies in about 4 hours one evening. Last night, basically, we had the opportunity to paint them. Being vehicles, they're not difficult to paint.
No.
I didn't give them the tidiest paint job, if I'm being honest, but you know, I'd only had a small amount of time. But they're incredibly detailed models.
They are, yeah.
Incredibly detailed models, and it's surprising. It's only like I paint under a magnifying glass, and it's only when I had it under it I actually saw all the little details, like little bits of, you know, chain and stuff like that.
I mean, they definitely put a lot of love into the models themselves and how they look and things.
It's a very, very interesting. Like Spartan design all this stuff on CAD, and then it goes through a prototyping process where it's 3D printed, and the 3D prints that they can get now are incredibly detailed, down to fractions of a micron. In terms of how detailed these 3D prints can go. And that's why their models and their recent models are just unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's incredible the detail that's on it. So next up we have the Kingdom of Britannia.
Yes.
And Victoria.
Queen Victoria's leading them. She's not amused, as you would imagine.
She's not amused. And is the empire crumbling at this stage? Or
it's about the same sort of state you'd imagine it to be in real history. They've got India and Australia and stuff like that, and fighting in the southern Asian area and stuff like that. They're very much at war with the Prussians in Europe and the Russians as well. And they have the threat from the French and the Italians as well from the south. Their basic thing is massive fleets, big heavy stuff, lots of massive tanks on the land and stuff like that. I'd say a great starting force if you really wanted to go for something that was a bit well-rounded and tough as nails as well. So
because they have massive tanks and big bombards and stuff like that.
I mean, they've got a massive land carrier that's basically St. Paul's Cathedral on tank traps, really. So.
Yeah, I believe there's an image of that in the book here somewhere where you've just got to see it to believe it. You know, it's I'm going to show you that. You can see there's St. Paul's Cathedral, minus the encampment of protesters out the front, and a line of bombards there at the back. So, anything in particular about the Britannians? Is it, you know, it is set in a kind of a slightly alternative history, but it's not that alternative. There's still a lot of the feel of Britannia is still there. They still feel arrogant and
I mean, the thing is that a lot of the different places, like especially with the Covenant of Antarctica, when you flip to them, they've fully embraced the technology to a degree. Whereas you've got people like the Kingdom of Britannia who have kept a very sort of original style to their outfits and things like that. I mean, this guy's dressed for war, as we can see here.
Yes.
And he's only got one bionicle implant, which you can see on his head, which is which is like a little spyglass. But
here we go.
Apart from that, they've pretty much kept their old way of life in a way.
Yes, the only thing he's missing is his cup of tiffin.
Yes, yes. What ho?
Moving on, we have the Prussian Empire. No, that's not Russian.
No.
They're Prussian.
It's more Germanic. Yeah.
So this is the Germans and Hungarians and things like that. Yes.
Yeah. And they've allied themselves with the Blazing Sun, the Empire of the Blazing Sun. They're pretty much putting all the pressure on the Britannians, more or less. And they've taken control of all of Central Europe. They're pretty much, as we can see from the models here, sort of like a very standard World War II design to things. Very rough and ready.
Give a look at that, yeah.
Big guns. And they like to get into the heat of the action pretty quickly as well.
So one of the key concepts here is they've found materials that, using an alloy of them, they were able to create materials that were as strong as steel or stronger than steel, yet were 10 whatever times lighter, which allowed them to create these floating fortresses.
I mean, they've taken things like tin, which wouldn't necessarily be a material that you consider for massive things, and they've made it 10 times stronger, 100 times stronger. So they're making amazing missiles and stuff like that. It's fantastic. So.
And what about the Italians? Is
well, the Italians, they're coming in the next wave of stuff, and they're going to be supporting some of the European factions and things like
Yes.
that. And we haven't seen any models for them yet, but I'm sure that Spartan will have some up pretty soon.
And is there any other kind of factions that we've kind of heard, on the grapevine?
We've got the Italians, the French Republic, we've got the
Yep.
Russians, and we have the Arabian Empire as well.
Oh,
which
wow.
will be really interesting.
That
to see.
should be very interesting. The rattling of sabers
Yes,
there.
it'll be really interesting to see what kind of models they go for with them, actually. So.
Well, let's hope that the Italians have used the extra strong material so as they don't damage things when they drop them and run away. Anything else about the Prussians that we need to...
No, pretty much covered them, I think.
Yeah.
They've got amazing jetpack technology as well, which you can see in the picture here.
Yeah.
Like, as we've covered in some of the videos already, when people board, they use their jetpacks and things like that. I mean, these guys have developed like steam-powered hook rifles and stuff like that. They can shoot into people and things. It's crazy stuff. Yeah.
Next up, we have the Empire of the Blazing Sun.
Yes, yes. Now they're a very interesting side because they're led by quite a young queen.
Yeah,
Empress. That's the right way to say it. Empress, and she didn't particularly want to have any fights with anybody. She was more than willing to have a lot of trade between the Britannians and stuff like that. But unfortunately, as always happens in history, the Britannians managed to piss them off. And they managed to ruin the life of one of the generals. So she went a little bit psycho.
Yeah, that general decided to make an attack on the East India Trading Company. Because East India Trading Company was doing its thing. And he decimated them. He did. He decimated them. And then basically the Empire of Blazing Sun were left with no choice but to launch an all-out
retaliate
offensive.
Pretty much, and so we've got the Empire of the Blazing Sun, which have really nice train-designed ships, really interestingly original designs for their ships, which is really quite cool. Very good at boarding, as you'd imagine, samurai and stuff like that.
Yeah, lots of close combat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Their army has a very interesting structure because they have three divisions. They have the shield, the sword, and the crucible.
Yeah.
So the shield is kind of like their defensive division, which is tasked with defensing the empire. They have the sword, which is their very much attacking division, which is tasked with going out and taking the fight to the enemy. And then they have the crucible, which is used for training recruits and things like that that then go out and join the shield.
It's a really interesting makeup to their army.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. Finally then, we have our old buddies, the good old Federated States of America. Now, these guys are going to be quite young. It's going to be quite a young state. They're probably only just out of their civil war at that stage.
Exactly. So. I mean, that's one of the things that's brought up in the fluff is that they're still almost divided between the North and the South at this point. Yeah,
and the South won in this one.
Yes, yes. And they're definitely trying to bring them together because their president's like, well, we need to solidify to take on any threats that we have and things like that. But obviously there's dissent within their own ranks. They have occasional alliances with the Kingdom of Britannia, fighting the specific areas. They fight with the Australian forces that are part of the British Empire and stuff like that. But they've mostly kept themselves out of most of the other conflicts. They've had occasional forays with the Empire of the Blazing Sun. But apart from that, they've more or less kept themselves self-contained.
They seem to be reasonably allied with the Britannians in some respects.
It's more of a casual relationship, I suppose you could say. So, but
well, it being a young nation, because they're probably only a couple of hundred years old by that stage, technology-wise, have they been very keen to adopt the technologies and things like that?
They have got quite a lot of their technology on board, but they maintain a very traditional way of using their boats and things like that. They've got massive water wheels on the side of their, like proper, what are they called? You know, the things that they take down the rivers in Mississippi?
I know I know exactly what it is, and I believe we have a picture in here as well of that, if I can find it.
Paddle boats.
Paddle boats, that's the one.
Yeah.
Let me see if we can pull up a picture of the paddle boats. There we go. There's a bit of a picture of a paddle boat there. Yeah. So it's something where you would expect to find Kenny Rogers on there gambling.
Probably.
So they've kept with kind of paddle boats and things like that. There, it has a very kind of southern feel to it.
Yeah, and the feeling with it as well is that they've managed to make ships that not only are good at sea, but very much inland as well. So you could have them going up the rivers and things like that, supporting their land forces, supporting their air forces, stuff. So,
which is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's something I've mentioned in How to Play, but it's important to get this across. Dystopian Wars is one of the few miniature games where they've actually created a game system where you can fight in all the major theaters. So you can have land battles, air battles, and sea battles all taking place on the same board.
Exactly.
And the beauty of that is, and it hadn't occurred to me until we'd just been speaking here about the Federated States, is that you could have a land mass, where you have your bombards and stuff fighting on that. Bombards can be launching batteries onto the naval units. Yeah. Naval units can be trying to ack down the fighters and the air support. There's walking units that can actually stride into the water, into
shallow water,
and attack the actual boats. Yeah. But it never occurred to me that if you build a couple of river systems into your landmass, some of the boats themselves could probably come up the river systems as well.
I mean, one of the classic scenarios that you could do is the island hopping. So it's sort of like the Pacific Theatre, and have lots and lots and lots of islands on the board with very small channels to try and get your ships through. Yeah, it'd be fantastic to see a sort of how that would work and how it would play out. Seeing the ships getting locked in the land and stuff like that, and landing on either side, flanking them and stuff. So.
And you would have different depths. You might have a few deep areas where a lot of the walkers couldn't go, but the rest of it pretty shallow, which might affect even some of the battleships may not be able to go into some of them shallow areas.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's one of the house rules that a lot of people can do, is that they have shallow areas of the board where things like the big battleships, as you say, can't go close to the land.
So there's your factions so far. They have this kind of like world map in there as well to give you an indication of just where these factions are controlling. As a book goes, I must admit I was very pleased with the book. I found the rules a little bit hard going, if I must be honest. The rules are simpler than what they appear in the book. So if you're struggling, watch the quick start guide that we've done, and that should clear up a bulk of it and allow you that whenever you're reading through it with a bit more knowledge than just picking it up. Because I picked this up completely dry, as I tend to do as a test with some of these things, and I did find it a little bit hard going, more hard going than it needed to be. Considering how simple the game actually is to play once you get into it.
It's nice to get down and just play it and sort of go through each of the stages slowly with somebody else and sort of play a sequence at a time.
The other great thing about it is it is easy to play your first game using a subset of the rules. And then add the other rules. The rules don't get in the way of you enjoying a simple game of it. There's a lot of stuff that you can just forget about. For example, what's called the model assigned rules, which you find on the back of the stat cards. They're listed in here as well. You can forget about a lot of that. You can play a simple game, and then you can start adding more and more detail and more and more depth, right down to the fate cards, which is an add-on that you can buy for the game, where you get a deck of cards.
And acts as the fog of war.
And it acts basically as the fog of war. You can draw them for each squadron that you have on the table. And it gives you some additional options and additional rules.
It's a great little addition to the thing.
So in terms then of the kind of scenarios, I want to try and give you guys a feel for the game. In terms of terrain, you can start with a gaming board as simple as a board painted blue and just work with the naval vessels and the air vessels. You can designate a few shallow areas, put a couple of islands in it, and then your walkers can come in off the island. So there's a lot that you can do there. However, as you get more and more involved in this game, it feels like it plays quick enough to me to allow you to have much bigger forces. I could see us easily playing with forces maybe 3 times the size of what we
it's very scalable. It's very scalable, and it's a great multiplayer game as well.
Yes, it'll work perfectly with 3, 4, 5 players.
It's great.
So at that stage, when you start looking at a bigger board, I'm starting to think like an 8x4 board would be great for 3 players, 4 players especially, and have a big land mass. Maybe with a river system up it, and then your ocean. It just makes for such stunning battles. And stuff dies in this. There's a lot of stuff blowing
Explodes in shrapnel.
There's a lot of stuff blowing up in this. So it's a very bloody, gorgeous game in that respect. You won't find it difficult to paint the models either. As I said, I was able to paint 2 factions 2 starter factions in about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
They're not painted magnificent, but hey, do you know what? They look good enough.
As long as it looks good on the board.
Yeah,
fine.
from the 3 feet
the
test,
3 foot rule.
they look great. So, you know, if you play with the metallics and some of the washes, I've been playing with some of the dwarf bronze with Gryphon sepia. This is kind of like a chainmail with Gryphon sepia and then some wooden decking. You know, you can very quickly put together a really nice army. So
very, very gamer friendly. That's what I say.
that's exactly the words I'm looking for. You're not going to find yourself struggling to keep up with this game.
Yeah.
You'll very quickly, you'll go buy yourself the rule books, get yourself a starter set, 3 paints, 3 pots of paints, 4 pots of paints max is all I needed to paint those. And you know, within a few hours, you're up and running with
Pretty much
a nice painted set.
Yeah.
How many war games can you say that for?
Not many.
Not many these days. So, no, I'm very, very pleased and very taken with it as well as a rule system. Once you get past the initial shock of trying to understand what to do, which the videos should help with, you'll very quickly get up to speed with it. And it plays very natural. And all the information you need is on these wee stat cards.
Which every game should have.
Yeah.
Every game should have these.
Every game should have stat cards. You know, stat cards give you unlimited expandability.
Yeah.
So, no, it's great. The models look great. I can see why it's so popular. You know, you're probably wondering out there why it took us a year to get round to actually doing it. You know, it's but you can definitely see why this game is as popular as it is.
Yeah.
So, lots and lots of possibilities. You can pick up a faction. I don't see any reason why you couldn't even create your own faction.
Yeah.
You could even introduce the rule of captured blimps and captured ships.
Yeah.
You know, if you have some house rules with your friends, I don't see any reason why you couldn't be Covenant of Antarctica and capture this bad boy here.
Yeah.
Which is a big...
amazing blimp.
Amazing blimp with an aircraft carrier deck
the Sky
strapped
Fortress.
to the top.
That's
Sky
the
Fortress.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see why you couldn't run that as a captured piece in a friendly game with your mates. The game is very much structured for friendly games.
Yes.
It allows you basically to come up with whatever scenarios you want, choose whatever deployment zones you want. The only thing that you need to do is just roll to see who deploys first. And at the start of every turn, you roll off to see who goes first.
Exactly.
Couldn't be simpler than that. However, I am hearing on the grapevine that some little tweaks and changes are due to make it a little bit more tournament friendly. So at some later stage, we'll do a series on that to show you how this game can fit to the tournament arena.
Sounds good.
Do you know what? I'm not worried about that for the moment. I'm just enjoying having
You want more
fun.
captured blimps?
I just want more captured blimps. I just want to look at the entire range of Dystopian Wars and go, I want that one, that one, that one, and that one.
Which you can do.
Which, no reason why you couldn't do it. Anyway, guys, Ben, unless there's something startling about the fluff background or this game that you've got to say.
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Then that's about it. Guys, thanks for watching. This game is on the Beasts of War highly recommended list.